Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and welcome to all of my new subscribers. And if you're returning, welcome. Please hit the likes button, and also if you're passing through, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Thank you all for hitting that subscribe button on my last video, and I appreciate it. Thank you all for the discussion. So today we're going to talk about these teachers. Since every child is going back to school, I think it's very important for us all to be aware of what's going on with these teachers. And it seems like the cases with the teachers are getting more bizarre, and there's a lot of cases, even here in California, that have come up where the teachers are more and more doing the unthinkable to the children, and they're being arrested. And they are more women that are being arrested for these crimes. And I'm like, my goodness, it used to be men. Now it's more or less the women. So I'm going to talk about two cases here. Well, actually three. One woman that was charged, well, she had been doing it in 2008, and her a victim just came forward. And so she was charged. Two cases in Connecticut. And I'm like, what's in the water, people out in Connecticut, that you're doing these unthinkable things? The lady now is 52. She was 34 or 32 at the time. And the little boy was 14. And I'm like, what the heck do you want with a 14-year-old? What is it that you would want with a 14-year-old? What pleasure do you get out of being with a 14-year-old? I don't get it. I don't get it. A 14-year-old, what pleasure do you want? What pleasure do you have? The other case is a lady that was dealing with an 11-year-old, even sicker. What pleasure would you get out of dealing with an 11-year-old? And in the third case, because we're going to talk about the first two cases first. In the third case, she gave the little boy a friendship, best friends bracelet, and said best friends forever. She would bribe him. And this little boy was on a website. So I'm thinking, why would an 11-year-old be on a website at 11 years old? My older daughter, when MySpace was out, she wasn't allowed to be on MySpace. And when she was caught on MySpace, I took the laptop, the computer away, and she wasn't allowed to be on there. She wasn't even allowed to have an account. I think these days you got to be really careful with kids being on Facebook, Twitter, and all of that, because there's so many predators out there. But now you go to school and your teacher's a predator. So you can't even send your kids to school to be safe, to the babysitter, to school, to wherever. Anyway, let's dive into this story. This first one is the teacher that out of Connecticut that did the unthinkable to this 14-year-old little boy, young man. And I say little boy because they are still little. They don't know. Now her name is Renee DeLeon. And we'll start from the beginning because I was just kind of reading into it. So this is Renee DeLeon out of Connecticut. This is her now.
Sex with a student 16 years later. I lay out what police say Renee DeLeon did and the charges that she faces. Plus, a teacher's assistant in Kansas also faces charges involving sex with a student. We'll break down both cases with a former sex crimes prosecutor. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Police in Wallingford, Connecticut have charged a 52-year-old woman with having sex with a student. At the time, Renee DeLeon was a teacher at James Moran Middle School. This was back in 2008, and police say that student was only 14 years old. A Facebook post from Wallingford Police says the sexual encounters took place between April 23rd, 2008 and December 31st of that same year. Police wrote, the relationship allegedly included numerous sexual acts, including intercourse. Detectives conducted many interviews and executed a search and seizure warrant as part of the investigation. De Leon is no longer employed by the Wallingford school system. Now, I contacted the Wallingford School District to see when De Leon stopped working there. So far, my message has not been returned. But back to 2008. At that time, De Leon would have been 36. And again, that student just 14. The student would now be around 30 years old. Police say they became aware of this incident on April 15th of this year, and the investigation unfolded from there. De Leon was taken into custody and charged with sexual assault in the second degree just recently, and she was also charged with injury to or impairing the morals of a child. These cases involving teachers accused of sex crimes goes to show you how important it is to make sure your kids are safe. Truthfinder.com is a website that can help you research the people.
Fast
According
forward.
to Commitment 2024 coverage this morning, the November general elections in Wisconsin are now set. Primary elections.
Stop that.
Commitment 2024 coverage now. Wisconsin's primary elections are today.
Polls are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me go back. I'm sorry, guys. Let me cancel that. Let me go back and look for this really quickly. But she, this lady, okay, okay, so the Truth Finder is where you could go in, I guess, and look to make sure you can put in anybody's name. And I guess that's a good way to start, is to put in anybody's name to find out if they're, a predator or not. So that, I guess that's a good thing. You can put in the truthfinder.com and go here and type in the name.
A lot of information about a person, including past addresses and criminal history. Just put in a person's name and you will get search results that includes criminal records, traffic tickets, addresses, and a person's possible relatives.
Yes, you do have
You
to
can
pay
do the
for
same thing. You can research anyone you know by simply putting in that person's name. You can even research yourself. I know because I've done it. What's really great about Truth Finder, especially if you have children, it will give you the addresses of sex offenders in your neighborhood. So if you want to try Truth Finder, I have a great deal for you. You can get 50% off of confidential background reports. Just log on to www.truthfinder.com/LCCrimeFix. Log on and start accessing information about almost anyone. I want to bring in Dan Shore. He's a former sex crimes prosecutor. He also has a firm that investigates sexual misconduct. He also teaches a course at Fordham University about sex crimes. Dan, thanks for coming on. Your thoughts on Renee De Leon being charged 16 years later with having sex with this student? It sounds like it went on for about 8 months back in 2008.
At 36.
Yeah, it's very unusual. You don't see many cases like this that are brought so many years later. Usually when there's a case that leads to an arrest many years later, it involves maybe a homicide or some other crime, but a case where there's
Now, that's kind of strange that she is actually charged 16 years later. That's very unusual. So he came forward, and it was just probably bothering him all these years. Can you imagine? It's like, did he get therapy over the years? Did he tell his mom? What went on with this little boy? I mean, he had to be tortured. This was in middle school, and he's gone all the way up. He's 30 years old now, and he's been carrying this with him all these years. And it went on for quite some time. I think it was a whole year that this went on, where she was having relations with him. And it's like, did she threaten him to say, if you didn't do this, you're going to get a bad grade? I'm going to fail you. It's like, are we talking to our children and saying, you know what, if this happens, you need to tell me? It makes you want to think to sit down. I'm glad that my children are grown, but I do have, godsons, and I do have, nieces and nephews, and I want them to make sure that they can come and talk to someone and feel comfortable doing so. There's so many things, so many threats that people try to threaten children with. And I want them to know that whatever threat that they try to threaten, I'll unalive your family, I'll do this to your family, I'll do this to you, it's not going to happen. And so they need to feel safe with going to someone. I know a lot of times, a lot of the adults don't believe their children, especially when it's like a boyfriend or a girlfriend per se. But they need to be safe telling someone what's going on and not walk around all of these years with this on their back and thinking that it's their fault or something that they did wrong. They need to have a safe person that they go to be able to tell this. This poor young man, all these years, he just came forward. He's 30 years old. It's sad, very sad. But I'll stop rambling, as I always do. I'm going to ramble. This is my channel, and I can do that. I have an opinion. But let's get back to it.
As a teacher with an underage student, there must have been special circumstances that the investigators, that law enforcement saw, that made them want to pursue this many years later.
When I look at this, I think that this had to have come to light because this now 30-year-old accuser probably went to law enforcement. Would you say that's probably how law enforcement found out about this? Or what do you think the possibilities are? I mean, it seems like there's not a whole lot of information out there. And for some reason, the judge has sealed the documents in the case for 14 days.
Right. So I prosecuted a lot of cases involving underage victims who are having sex with older people, sometimes teachers, sometimes not. Sometimes people disclose them years later. Sometimes a family member reported it. So maybe a parent or someone else. The fact that this victim was much older probably means that he was probably more involved in reporting it. But it's definitely unusual to see a case like this come to light later. But one thing about the Me Too movement and the changes in societal attitudes over the last 5 years to a decade is that more people are emboldened to bring forward claims that years ago they felt they could not bring forward, or maybe they felt that if they brought them forward, no one would care or no one would believe them. So we do see a lot more people feeling now, okay, now I understand I can bring forward a complaint about sex abuse that I didn't feel I could before.
So they said they did some search warrants. Of course they did. I have to think that related to electronic devices, potentially, whether it's phones, possibly email, computers. We just really don't know what they were looking for. But they can't just go on the word of the accuser. I would think they'd have to have corroborating evidence. So what would you be looking for as a prosecutor to move forward on a case that is 16 years old?
Sure. Well, first of all, you're right. It's very challenging when it's just based on the word of the accuser, when it's so many years later. However, if that accuser is convincing and they think that person will be convincing beyond a reasonable doubt, they could bring the charges. But I agree with you. Most likely they need some corroboration. It's interesting because so many times now in cases, you see search warrants executed to get email records, text messages, phone records. But since this alleged...
Are you telling me that this probably only happened one time in that 16-year period. I mean, it doesn't appear that these things usually happen in a vacuum. And the police did put out that they are looking for other information. They didn't say they believe there were other accusers or victims out there, but do you believe possibly that they're looking maybe for more, that maybe other people will come forward with additional information? Because does this type of thing just happen once? Are these things possibly just one-offs? In my experience, it doesn't appear that they are.
Right. I think it works both ways. There are situations where there is a one-time relationship that people have. There are other times, as you alluded to, where it's a pattern of misconduct with many potential victims out there. Certainly, whenever we see a person in authority, such as a teacher who's taking sexual advantage of a student, a proper law enforcement investigation is going to see, are there other people who might have been similarly subjected to unwanted or just sex abuse that is based on the fact that they were underage and could not consent under the law. So law enforcement, it sounds like they probably are being responsible by looking into that. But right now, we don't have any information showing publicly that there was another.
And what do you think? Do you think that she had a relationship with another student? Was this just, she was fixated on this one kid and just was, I hate to say attracted to him? How can you be attracted to a child? Or do you think that this was her first incident? Or do you think that she might have done this before? I mean, you don't just all of a sudden just wake up one day and say, oh, I like this student. And just to fixate it. I believe that when you do it once, there's been a history of you doing it before. And maybe the other children just did not come forward. They just let it go. So I don't believe this was a one-time thing. I believe that when you have a adult that is a predator, they just don't become a predator overnight and just fixate on one time only. I believe that they've done it once before or twice before. And that's my opinion. I don't believe that when somebody touches or essays a child that they just did it to that one child. I believe that it's a pattern. I'm sorry. I don't believe that they just wake up one night and say, oh, I'm just going to go out here and, I'm attracted to this child. And that's my opinion. So, what do you think? What do you think? I am going to fast forward through some of this stuff.
People felt hesitant to step up and say something because they were afraid of retaliation or they were afraid of causing trouble. So a lot of times an investigation like this is also about what did the organization fail to realize at the time and what can be done differently going forward in terms of how people can report, how policies and procedures are written. So that's a really significant part of any investigation like this also.
Yeah, and so far the school is not returning phone calls. So it will be interesting to see what the school knew, if anything, about this possible indiscretion or any other instances. I want to turn to our next case now, and this one's out of Kansas. It involves 27-year-old Cassidy Alexander. She faces charges also related to an allegation that she was having sex with a high school student who was 16 or older. A little bit different of a case, but still she was in a position of authority. She was a paraprofessional at Lexington Trails Middle School in DeSoto outside of Kansas City. And the district released this statement, Dan. It says, on Tuesday, May 14th, the district administration was made aware of an allegation of an inappropriate relationship between a female classified employee at Lexington Trails Middle School and a male high school student. Based on this information, the school district acted immediately to protect and care for those involved by suspending the employee in question. Upon being suspended, the individual immediately resigned their employment. And Cassidy Alexander appeared in court. She posted bail. She's free right now, but will be back in court at a later date. So here we have a 27-year-old woman who's accused of having sex with a high school student who's 16 or older. She's still in a position of authority. You are not allowed to do that. It's against the law. And it seems like we're seeing a lot more of these female teachers being charged these days. So what do you make of that? It seems like more and more female teachers are getting charged. For a long time, it seemed like we were seeing a lot of men. Now it's a lot of females.
Well, I think one thing in society that's changed and again, it's part of this is the Me Too movement, part of this is other societal movements, is that we recognize that males can also be victims of sexual misconduct, especially when in situations where they're underage. I think when I was growing up, there was unfortunately a societal attitude that if there was a male student and an older female, that the male wasn't really victimized, that there was no damage done, that he probably wanted to have sex. And I think society has evolved. Now we recognize that this is sex abuse and that it needs to be taken seriously no matter what the genders are of the people involved. So I don't think there's more occurrences of older females with younger underage men than there were years ago, but I think people take it more seriously now when it's reported. And also people feel that they can report it in a way that years ago, because of societal attitudes, I think a lot of younger boys felt, well, I can't report this. No one's going to care. People are going to just laugh it off, because that's often been the.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Okay, so this is two cases, one 16, one 14. I mean, it doesn't make a difference what the ages are. They were both adults and they should not be in a relationship with a minor. They're both minors. And I don't get it. 14 and they're minors. It brings me to that case way back in, I believe, in the 2000s, around the 2008, Mary Kate Letourneau, who had an affair with her 14-year-old. Maybe he was, I think he was 14 years old. And she had ended up having a baby with him. She ended up going to prison or jail. And then her release was that she was not supposed to be around him. She ended up getting out. I think she had the baby. The baby was with the mother. He ended up bringing the baby to see her. They ended up having relations again. She ended up getting pregnant again. And when she was released, they ended up getting married. And they were married and living together for a while and ended up getting a divorce later on. And she ended up passing later from cancer, I believe. But I just don't understand where a 36-year-old or even a 36-year-old or a 52-year-old or where your mind is at. Why is your mind down here with a 14-year-old immature child? And what do you think you're going to get out of that? Is your mind that immature and slow that you have to go and deal with a child? I don't get that. That's disgusting. Disgusting. You are there to protect our children. And it's disgusting to me. Now, as I say disgusting, we're going to move on to another disgusting adult. And I find that now that there's more and more women that are doing this, it used to be men, but now I'm seeing more and more women doing it. And it's like, my goodness, every time I turn on the TV, it's like another woman arrested for having relations with a minor. And it's just sickening. Now, I was criticized for pausing. You paused too long. And, I said, excuse me, I'm thinking. If I want to pause and think, that is my prerogative and I will do it. It's my channel. And if I'm thinking and having a conversation, I can do that. This is not CNN News and I'm not trying to be that professional. This is a YouTube channel and I'm having fun. So anyway, I just had to throw that in there because we have so many trolls that try to come up and control your channel and tell you what to do on your channel. And it's just beyond me. But anyway, as I was saying that, I thought about it as I paused. But anyway, let's get back into this next story. This is with an 11-year-old. And I'm like, these people are just sick. And they need, they really need help. They really need help. And to do this. But anyway, let me share this next story. This was with an 11-year-old, and it's like they know how to get in these children's mind. Share. Okay, and this one's out of Connecticut. So there was 2 out of Connecticut and 1 out of Kansas.
Giving him a bracelet that said best friends forever for life with benefits. Now she's in more trouble. I'll tell you why the feds have now charged Allison Kranick. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Allison Kranick was a teacher at Horace Porter School in Columbia, Connecticut until last year. Last September, Connecticut State Police said a 12-year-old boy told a relative that he had been involved in a sexual relationship with Kranick in 2022. Prosecutors in Connecticut charged Kranick with a handful of sex crimes related to minors. Now, federal prosecutors have charged Kranick with 1 count of enticement of a minor to engage in sexual activity. According to a criminal complaint, minor victims stated to her that Kranick had raped him and then explained that over the summer of 2022, he would sneak out of the house to meet with Kranick. Kranick would communicate with minor victim on Discord and coordinate with him nights that they should meet. Discord is an internet messaging service. At the time, that boy was only 11 years old. He later turned 12. The boy told investigators that initially he and Kranick communicated via iMessage and Snapchat. The complaint continues. During the summer of 2022, minor victim would sneak out of his house about once or twice a week around 1 or 2 a.m. to meet up with Kranick. This often caused him to be tired during the day, so Kranick would buy him caffeinated drinks, such as Mountain Dew and Monster energy drinks. The complaint says sometimes Kranick would drive the boy to Horace Porter School, where Kranick was a teacher and the boy was a student, and they would have sex in the backseat of her car. On one occasion, the boy told investigators, Kranick was on top of the minor victim while he sat in the back seat and she had sexual intercourse with him. Minor victim disclosed that he never wore a condom while having sex with Kranick, and she told him that she was on this Plan B stuff. Federal investigators write about other things they say back up this boy's story. For instance, one of the boy's neighbors posted a photo of Kranick's car on Facebook because it appeared suspicious. It was parked on the street so often in the middle of the night. Then there was another incident involving Kranick and the boy. Investigators write, minor victim was at Columbia Lake during the day with Kranick. While minor victim was fishing, Kranick had her hand on his inner thigh and asked him to put his hand on her thigh. The lifeguards observed this and reported it to the police, who later spoke to minor victim's father. Minor victim's father spoke to Kranick about the incident, and she explained that the lifeguards were overreacting because they hated her. The boy told investigators that he and Kranick had initially communicated via iMessage and Snapchat, but then started using Discord because his mom and other adults could see those messages on his phone. The feds say they found 4,700 messages between the two of them on Discord. One was on July 21st of 2022. The complaint says, Kranick told minor victim she wanted to make him a beaded bracelet with the acronym BFFWB, which means best friends forever with benefits. However, Kranick told the victim she could not put that acronym on a bracelet because of what it meant. She then said, I will figure out how to do the bracelet thing, but add something so only we know. Kranick suggested using BFFLWB, which means best friends forever for life with benefits, and minor victim said he liked it. Agents say Kranick then sent the boy a photo of the bracelet on Discord. The agents wrote, Kranick then coached minor victim on how to respond when asked about the meaning of the bracelet. telling him to tell people it means best friends for life, we're better, and to make sure he does not tell anyone that the bracelet is about her. There are many messages between Cranick and the boy. They're almost the type of messages you would see between two school-aged kids, but some are also very manipulative, where Cranick says she will cry if the boy does not meet up with her. Police wrote in an arrest warrant that Cranick downplayed any messages she exchanged with the student, and she said she was comforting him because he was having trouble at home. While Cranick faces state charges for alleged crimes involving that student, she now faces that federal enticement charge. The world can be a really scary place, and you don't always know who's a friend or a foe, especially when you're talking to people online.
Okay, so how sick is that? And where was the mom when the little boy was on the laptop on this website? And where was the mom when he was sneaking out? I guess maybe she was asleep and he was supposed to be asleep. And they were right in front of the street doing all of this. I mean, this teacher is sick. Absolutely sick. An 11-year-old boy. I think that, these people need to have, it needs to be a longer punishment for these teachers and these people that take advantage of children. It needs to be a longer punishment. And I think that when our children are acting a little strange, as I said in the other video, that we need to sit them down and figure out what's going on, what's wrong with them. I did a video previously to this about a teacher that did the same thing. But only this dad said, if I would have stopped her, he was going to do it anyway. So he allowed this teacher to come to the home and do whatever they happened to my internet. So I apologize. The internet went out for just a quick second. But he allowed this woman to come to the home and, I was like, did you offer a pillow? Which room to sleep in? Did you offer a glass of wine? It's like, come on, people. When are we going to get it together and make these people pay? I think it needs to be a longer sentence for these people and not a slap on the hand. And they would stop taking advantage of our children. Even at 16, their brains are still not developed. And so that's why they still need parents, and they're not able to sign for anything until they're 18. They can't even rent a car. They can't even get their driver's license. They can't even buy, anything legal at 17, 16. And 11, come on. So just if your children are acting strange, and maybe sit down and have that talk with them, that if, this happens, or if anybody touches you, or any, something happens like that, if you're not feeling comfortable talking to me, please sit down and talk to someone about it that you feel comfortable with, so that they can get it off of their chest and they won't have to carry this on or have to do this with whoever they're involved with, and have that on their mind and be tortured going to school every day, especially in elementary school. I think 11 is like middle school, maybe. These days it's middle school, and even in elementary school. I hope that, you never know. But just sit down and talk to your children. These are some of the sad cases of the teachers that sadly, parents these days have to be aware. I mean, it was going on probably, I told a story of when I was in middle school, about this teacher that looked at children. I don't know if it was going on or not, but, who knows? It might have been going on back then. But just, so that we're aware of what's going on with our teachers, sit down and talk to your children. These are some of the sick teachers that we have, and I'm sure there's more, and there will continue to be more. I hope they screen our teachers a little bit better and watch who they put around our children. Thank you all so much for watching my channel. And please keep your comments civil and nice. And I don't need rude comments on here, and I don't need you to come up and tell me how to run my channel. But please comment on the videos, and I don't care if you disagree with me. I love you to disagree and have those conversations. Everybody has an opinion, and you don't have to agree with me. But leave your comments, and please hit that likes button and the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And I hope this video is better quality than the others. My camera was on a different mode, so I hope this is better. So thank you so much, and welcome again to all of my new subscribers. And until next time, bye.